Hey guys, I'm Brittany Hughes. You're watching MRCTV, and this is your reality check. Following weeks of media buildup, the Republican National Convention kicked off last Monday in Cleveland, and along with it came the throngs of protesters that the pundits had warned us all about. We here at MRCTV were in Cleveland last week, documenting the hordes of disgruntled, disenfranchised masses who turned out to protest the evil right-wing agenda that's marginalized so very many people. And these protesters? Here's what they looked like. Yeah, that's right. All those dissatisfied anti-right-wing Americans that the media raved about turned out to be a relatively few people who decided it would be fun to make a homemade sign and parade it around the public square. There were guys like this.
Let me see.
And those who weren't old enough to still be ticked off about the Vietnam War were primarily college-age kids who managed to pry themselves out of their parents' basements long enough to march in the streets, complaining about white patriarchy and all the student loan debt that they've racked up, getting degrees in underwater basket weaving and lesbian dance theory. Some held up signs claiming that Trump hates kittens. Others decided that Shrek was somehow the answer. One guy ran around with a sign demanding that we make memes great again. Nevertheless, some in the media tried to spice up these non-protests and somehow prove how many people hate the GOP. Mere hours after a protester tried to burn an American flag and ended up lighting his own pants on fire instead, the U.S. News and World Report claimed that protests were raging outside the convention center. CBS News at the time said that anti-RNC demonstrations were boiling over, except that none of that was true. The most tense moment of an entire week's worth of protests were when an idiot lit his own pants on fire before getting arrested. There were no real anti-GOP protests, which the news outlets eventually admitted. As a matter of fact, a disappointed Washington Post said that when they surveyed Cleveland protesters, only 5% said their goal was to change the GOP's platform or nominee. There was no violence. About 5 people walked around open carrying. No one shut down traffic. The vast majority of demonstrators were skinny-jeaned hipsters still teed off that Occupy Wall Street had fizzled out. Most of the time, there were more cameramen and bored reporters than demonstrators. In fact, at one point, we watched about 40 media crews rush to film a group of police officers changing a black man's flat tire because nothing else was happening. So when the media hypes up the narrative of thousands of angry people, know that the real story is more about those pointing the camera than those showing off for it. And even when they do end up being more than a few tie-dyed hippies dancing around in a water fountain, the truth is that these protests are instigated and fueled by a media narrative that cares more about sensationalism and ratings than documenting the truth. And to all those protesters who did show up to Cleveland, if you can't get more than 20 people to rally to your cause, and if you can't even flick a lighter without setting your own pants on fire, you're not going to be starting a revolution anytime soon. And I don't think America has a lot to fear from you. And that's your reality check, America. Stay sane out there. If you like this video, check out more on our YouTube page or at mrctv.org, and make sure that you like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.